Welcome. I'm Brad Miller, and I'm here with Jason Medford. And today we're going to talk about the seasons of life, kind of like the days of your life, but the seasons of your life.
And so through the hourglass are the
That's right.
days of your lives, right? For any of
That's
you that
right.
watch that soap opera that I think is still probably going on.
It's the hourglass keeps on going apparently for it. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, but no, this is something that kind of came up for me a couple weeks ago, and then re-emerged yesterday when I was on my hike, and the idea of seasons. Um, the in a different couple different contexts. So I think the first context is obviously the natural seasons: summer, winter, fall, spring, that we go through every year. And the fact that we've got the spring, the growing season, when things are planted. We've got the summer when things are nourished and are fed. You've got fall or autumn when you've got the harvest, and you get to enjoy the bounty of what you've done and what's happened. And then you've a little bit of decay as a fall, leaves fall, things like that. And you get into winter, which is a time of quiet, of peace, of rest. um, and I think this not just only applies to obviously the physical seasons of the earth, but it applies to many things. You could say it applies to your life. You're born, your spring is you're born as a baby, as a child. You get into early adulthood. The summer comes, you're growing, you're developing, you're learning things, you're kind of getting strong, and then you hit the peak of your life, whatever that may be for you. The autumn, you get to get the fruit of your labor, of the things that you've done throughout your life. And then things kind of calm down and quiet down as we kind of ride off into the sunset of retirement, and then as we leave this planet. And the circle of life, the Lion King on the mountain
Mm-hmm.
there. There's that. But the other thing, the one that I really want to talk about today, though, is the idea that everything that you do has seasons to them. So, for example, a lot of times you may be working on a program of some sort, a project. You may have this idea. Maybe it's a coaching program you want to put in place, or something you've been working, that you're an idea that you've said, hey, I want to make this thing happen, right? That's the spring phase of this idea. So then you start, like, all right, cool. So you birth this idea, you put it on paper, and then you start to take steps towards it. You're now in the summer, the growing season. You nurture it, you water it, you you know but do whatever the steps you need to do to make this thing happen, right? So then you come to the autumn, the fall, the abundance, where this actually thing comes out. You've now got this program, project, coaching, whatever it might be that you're doing, and you're like, this is awesome. I've got clients, I'm helping people, I've got money, this is wonderful. And then I think so often, then we're like, all right, great, let's go with the next idea. And we quickly jump right back in the spring and try to plant something new. But when we do that, we're forgetting that there's that fourth season. We're forgetting that there's that winter, the time of rest, the time of rejuvenation, of allowing ourselves to recover, so that we can then have a fruitful spring and summer and autumn and do the cycle again. And so that's kind of things that come to my head personally, but I thought also could apply to those listening too. And I'm sure, and I know there's a spiritual bent to this as well. Um,
Oh, yes, there is. Because I think, again, it's the time, even though here on this planet, in our reality, we think of time as being linear. Time is cycles. It's multiple
mhm,
cycles. And so just like you said, we can think of it as on the grand scheme, your whole life from being born until we die, right? Physically. We can think of it as careers. We can think of it as specific projects, right, that we might have. But it's even more than just that, right? And the fact that, like you said, so many of us, especially that are doers, we don't want to wait in winter, we want to get going again, right? We want to like jump winter and go right back to
Right.
spring and just get going again. But we need that time, right? And so I think
Mm-hmm.
it's, for people that are Game of Thrones fans, right? And I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
There was a saying that would come up all the time: winter is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Winter is coming. Winter is coming, right? And so, like that, just from an agrarian perspective, like you said, if you're a farmer, you plant in the spring, you tend to, and do what you need to in the spring and the summer, and then the harvest comes in the fall. But, when the harvest comes, you can't blow your wad all at one time either, right? Because and so again, what a farmer would do in general is, I'm just going to kind of use an example, right? Of well, if I'm growing wheat, okay, I plant my wheat, I do what I need to, I harvest my wheat. Now, in the old days, when I harvest my wheat, I'm going to do something right at the beginning. I'm going to take from that harvest the seeds that I need for next spring. Right. And so again, now with the way agribusiness is done, people don't think about this, but this is how people used to
Mm-hmm.
do it. I've got my harvest. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set aside the seed that I need for next spring. From my bounty, I'm going to take the investment that I need to invest in the spring, and I'm going to put it in a safe place in the storehouse. And then I'm going to look at the rest of my bounty, and I'm going to say, winter is coming. How much of that do I need to help sustain me and my family through the harvest time? And I set aside that. And what's left is what I would go sell or barter or trade with other people, right? Because I don't want to eat just wheat. I might need to find a farmer who does potatoes, or I might need a new horse, right? So I either need to sell a portion of my bounty to buy my horse, to, trade for potatoes, whatever it might be, right? But again, you notice the order that you go in. You set aside the investment you need to plant next spring, what you need to get you through the winter, because winter is coming. And then what's left is what you do. Now, most of us, we just piss away everything to begin with, and we don't think about those other two things. We just jump right over it. Like, man, there's not going to be any winter. I'm gonna plant right now, and everything's going to be just fine, right? And a lot of people do that from a business perspective, and then they get up in a bunch, right? So there's that aspect to it of there is a reason why there is every season, and every season is important, right? And so for those of you that are doers, it's hard sometimes in the winter because you're like twiddling your thumbs, like, oh my gosh, I wish I was out there doing something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pick up a hobby, do something else during the wintertime. But from a spiritual perspective, this is happening all the time too, right? In your spiritual involvement, there's a birth, there's a maturation, there's a harvesting, there's a winter, a death that leads to a new birth. And there's these cycles that are going on all the time, right? Some people refer to shamanic deaths. What is that? It's the winter before your next spring. It ain't nothing to be afraid of, right? Because as Brad was talking, I think we're going to try to see how many movie, and or like song references we can
We
get
can
in
stick in
here.
this episode.
We
Yeah.
can get in here because when you were talking about it, the song that popped into my head too was "Don't Fear the Reaper,"
Mm-hmm.
right? Blue Oyster Cult.
Mm-hmm.
Don't fear the Reaper. You don't need to fear the Reaper, right? There is just a part of harvesting. It's a part of death, and death is a part of birth. You have to die before you can be reborn. And so this happens also in the spiritual realm, right? Is that we're going through these all the time. And obviously, sometimes we go through them really fast, and it's like, woo, right? I mean,
Roller coaster
there's
time. Yeah.
roller coaster time, baby. I mean, there were um, there was a point in my life for several months, just up until just recently, where it was like, in a way, I was in that winter phase of resting, strengthening myself, right? Getting ready. I mean, so again, imagine if you're just hanging out eating bonbons all winter, right? Well, you got to be physically fit to do the work you got to do in the fields in the spring. So if you're just sitting there on your butt eating bonbons and getting fat during the winter, that's not necessarily going to serve you, right? So there's still some things that, you might do some push-ups or do some different things, because when it's time to plant, you've got to be ready physically to be able to do it. Well, the same thing happens spiritually as well, right? So I've been in that winter phase in certain aspects for a while, but then I started feeling it's about time to go fast. It's about
It's go
time.
time.
It's about go time, and it's going to go fast. And I will tell you, the last 2 weeks have been right. I'm in one of those phases right now where it's like running. People looking at me wouldn't have any idea, but that's a phase that I'm in right now, right? And so, like I said, this happens all the time. There's no reason to fear the reaper, right? And the seasons of life are wonderful, right? In fact, Brad was going to play a song for me, and he didn't do it.
I didn't.
But
Well,
no,
yeah, there's
but
other
tell
things we
him,
talked about though first. So
yeah, but kind of tell people, because there's
yeah.
another part of your story and why you were going to share it, and then I'll share why that was so synchronistic, uh, from my perspective too. Because when he told me, I'm like, "What? Are you kidding me? That?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I mentioned at the beginning that I came up with this topic. This idea hit me again yesterday when I was out hiking. And so I'm thinking, okay, seasons of life, which is very similar to seasons of love. And so now we're getting into a Rent song. And my head starts going, 525,600 minutes. And so exactly. And
Yep.
so, I thought for a second, and I totally forgot when we started here, I was going to play that, to kind of a lead in when we came on here. But yeah, that's was going through my head.
As you were thinking about that
As I was
topic
thinking about it.
yesterday on your hike for us to record today, right?
Yep.
So that's Brad's side of it, right? Okay, so again, let's talk synchronistically about how all this happens, right? So it wasn't last night, right? Because Brad was on his hike yesterday during the day. So 2 nights ago, the night before Brad went on his hike, a friend of mine plays the piano. I was listening to her playing the piano, and she was, just kind of going through and playing some different songs. And all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, you'll know this one." And I'm like, "Okay." She starts playing this song. And I'm like, "It kind of sounds familiar, but I'm not quite sure what it is." And she's like, "Oh, come on. You have to know this one." Right. And so she's going through playing it. I'm like, no, right. I'm like, I know it sounds like a Broadway musical song, so I know it's a Broadway musical, right? And it's like, was that from Wicked? Because it's like, is this? It's kind of familiar, but it's not really, right? And so she starts singing the words, and I'm still like, yeah, still don't have it, right? And yeah, it's from Rent. She was playing Seasons of Love from Rent. Now, I'm a fairly cultured guy, even though I don't look like it, right? And so I actually enjoy Broadway musicals. I've seen a lot of them. But you know what? I have never seen Rent.
Really? You've never seen it?
I have never seen
Wow.
Rent. I know the story about the guy who did it. I watched a
Mhm.
documentary, or not a documentary, but I saw one of the other plays that he did. right? That wasn't rent, and it kind of makes reference to rent and kind of some of the stuff around it. So I'm familiar with it. And again, it's like, why have I not seen one of the, biggest hits of all time on Broadway? I don't know. Maybe so we can have this discussion right now and I can go watch it.
Maybe.
But
Wow.
yeah, so
Yeah.
my friend was playing that song the night before you had that
Hmm.
experience too. And it fits right in line with our seasons of life, because it's not just seasons of life, it's seasons of love, it's seasons of spirit, it's seasons of growth, right? It's
Mhm.
physical seasons if you're planting, if you're, what we have to wear, right? I mean, I'm starting to wear a hoodie a little bit more now because it's starting to get cooler here, right? Because we're in fall and slowly move into winter, right? And so even with that, we have to physically do some things different. I got to wear some different clothes because it's kind of chilly if I'm just in shorts and a tank top, right? When it's, I know it's going to seem weird, 50 some degrees here, right? Which is not that
Like
cold, but
winter than Arizona. Like
it's,
that's
yeah, it's winter, and it's, again, it's not that it's that cold, but when, again, for the last few months, it's been close to 100 all the time. So a 50-degree drop
it feels cold though.
is a big deal for your body, and it has to get used to it, right?
Hmm.
And I guess maybe that's another thing with the seasons too, is that as we're going through the seasons, we have to acclimate and we have to adapt as we're going through those, but realizing that we're going through them, we're going through all of them, and that's just the way
Hmm.
it is. And there's no reason to fight against it. There's no reason to feel anything, because it just is what it is. So
Yeah. And that's a good point about your adaptability issue, because you're talking about how you've been going through really, really fast cycles. Like you feel like you're like in a loop to loop, whatever. And I wonder if some of the impact that when we do have those quick changes is because we don't have a lot of time to acclimate to each stage, because we're going from one to the next, and we don't have time to be like, all right, I need to put a jacket on. My body needs to get used to this temperature being a little colder now. Okay, now I'm used to that. Now it's a little colder. I got to put a little heavier clothes till I get warm enough, And I wonder if that's part of why it seems to hit you so hard sometimes when it's rapid like that, when it's so quick.
yeah, well, and I think it's, you still have to integrate, you still have to kind of transmute and everything when it's hitting you. But yeah, in those fast times, you don't have time to think. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have time to sit there and wallow. You don't have time to hang out on the ledge with feet on both sides. I think we talked about that in another episode, kind of a shamanic death of, you can't have your feet on both sides of the bridge as the bridge is moving apart and
Mm-hmm.
collapsing, right? You have to decide. You either stay where you're at or you jump. And because the longer that you hang out, the more you're going to have your legs getting stretched, and it's going to hurt, right?
I hurt just thinking about it. So like,
It hurts just thinking about it, right? Especially
yeah,
from a guy perspective.
that's
It's like
right.
we're not
Mm-hmm.
normally flexible that way, so doing the
In that area,
splits
yeah.
can hurt. um but yeah, but you still, it's just the velocity is so much quicker, right? That's a term that we use like in risk management. But there's the quicker things are happening, you're still going through all the cycles,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just happening to you quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker, which means you don't have time to sit on your hands. You don't have time to think about it. You just have to go and do it. Right. And so again, think about like, when you're in an emergency kind of situation, brain gets shut off, you just go, right? You just kind of know what to do. And sometimes spiritually, it's that way too, where it's like, you just feel like the water hose is coming down on you, right? But again, this happened to me last night. I had a lot of stuff come in yesterday, and there got to be a point where it's like, I'm kind of drowning a little bit in all this stuff, right? And so it's like, okay, what did I do? Remove myself physically, right? To be by myself, integrate. And it's kind of like, okay, I go in, my brain, my spirit starts putting everything like, right? Picking up all these little pieces and putting them where they need to go,
Puzzle
right?
pieces. Yep.
Puzzle pieces where they go. And then all of a sudden it's like stabilized, get a couple of like knowings that come in as a result of that, right? It's like I've picked up my puzzle pieces, I put them where they were supposed to go, stabilize the system, more information comes in, right? But not in an overwhelming perspective, but in a here's what you need to know right now about what you just got. And here's what you need to do right now about what you just got. Right. So that happened last night. And again, how long did it take? This was 20 minutes. Went outside on the deck, separated myself, did my little what I needed to do, got some of these knowings. And one of them was tonight, you need to do this. Right. And I kind of got the knowing of exactly what it was that I needed to do. Okay. When I come back in, I get about my business and I do it. And then you move on. But you got to go through all the cycles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because again, it's really fun to be in the growth state. Planting the seeds is kind of fun. Like, oh, this is exciting. I got stuff coming up. The summer, you can see growth. You can see the leaves sprouting. You can see things. And then obviously everybody loves the harvest. Like, that's best time when you get to see, hey, I've got the wheat that I've been growing or whatever like that. But like I said, the winter part, that season's just important too. You can't skip by that one. Because that's a lot comes, I think a lot comes in from that at that time that is more aware, behind the awareness, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think because as you were talking, it just kind of reminded me. I mean, we've talked a lot about spring and about fall and about winter, right? Focusing a lot on winter because people tend to jump over it. But there were a couple of things that came in that I think I need to share about summer too, right? Is a lot of times we work really hard in the spring, we plant the seeds, and we're a little tired at that point. And again, depending on where you live, the summer can be hot, it can be dry. And what's important is after you plant those seeds is the consistency of nurturing and doing what must be done until the harvest time. So if you go out and you plant a bunch of seeds and you leave them and you don't do anything about them, there will be no harvest. If the seeds are not watered, if the seeds are not fertilized, if you don't pull out the weeds that are trying to strangle your new seeds, you will have no harvest. Right? And so a lot of times in the summertime, we want to play, and we should play. Because honestly, again, from an agrarian perspective, it doesn't require as much time doing farming as you do in the spring and as you do in the fall and the harvest, right? Those are more time intensive periods of time, but you can't neglect everything completely during the summer. You can't say, okay, hey, I planted my seeds, now I'm going to go to the beach, I'm going to surf all winter or all summer, and I'm not even going to think about my plans. Doesn't work that way. You still have to have that consistency. Doesn't take as much time, but you got to water a little bit. You got to do some different things like that, right? And just as a simple example, again, I mean, the place where I live now, it's about almost 50 years old. So over time, people have planted all kinds of different things. Now I'm kind of a zero-scape. I don't want to have to spend a lot of time taking care of the grounds, if you will. So this first year, I just kind of wanted to see what was here and what would survive on its own without much nurturing from my standpoint. Now, if I'm growing vegetables, that's different, right? But I wanted to just kind of see from a basic landscaping perspective.
Hmm.
And so we got a couple of good monsoons that came through, and all of a sudden this certain plant, and I don't know what it is, it looks like it was some kind of a flower, starts popping up in these flower beds that didn't have anything in them, or over in the lawn area that's not really lawn, it's just dirt and rocks, right, would start popping up. And so for the first little bit, I was like, well, I'll water them a little bit. But then I'm like, no, I want to see what, if they're hardy. I'm not going to sit there and water every day because that's not important to me. Those kinds of seeds and plants are not as important to me as other seeds and plants that we're really talking about, everybody. Okay. And so I have just sat and watched as those plants have started to wither up, right? Because by themselves, they cannot sustain themselves. And so again, I don't know what they are, but again, it's not necessarily something that I necessarily want to have on my property, but it's that same concept, right? I stopped watering them. What happens? They shrivel up. Whatever they were, I'm not going to get a harvest out of those plants, because in here I'm consciously choosing to neglect them. Okay. And that's a difference, right? I'm consciously choosing not to place my attention or time or awareness on it, just observe and see what happens. But how much of the time do we unconsciously neglect and then are frustrated when there's no harvest, when it was our fault? It was our responsibility and we didn't do it.
Yeah. No, there's a big difference between what you intend to plant and things that are just there that maybe pop up around you. Annuals versus perennial flowers. You tend to plant the annuals. So you every year and you dig the hole in the spring and you put them in there and the next looks pretty, whatever. But those perennials just kind of pop up every year and you may or may not know what they are. They may be from who knows how many generations back, but again, those you just kind of like, okay, they were nice, but that wasn't really what I intended to do, or and again, we're just talking about flowers here, but
yeah, but we're talking about flowers, but we're not talking about flowers.
Exactly.
Yeah,
which could be maybe that should be the new subtitle of the podcast is we're talking about this, but we're not really talking about this. We're talking about I feel like that's kind of where things go. Like we always have, there's underlying stuff that's really what's important that we're trying to get across.
Yeah. But no, I think it's the not trying to fight it either. It's like, this is, for a farmer, the seasons are something you can't control. You can't decide when it's going to rain. You can't decide when the sun is going to come out and be a scorcher that day. There's certain things you can do, right? Like, again, I live in Arizona. My neighbor next door has a big vegetable garden. And, she has these kind of like tarp sort of
Canopy things, yeah.
Canopy kind of over her garden. So it still gets the sun, but it doesn't get some of the scorching heat, right? To kind of protect. So she can do a few things like that. But she can't control whether it rains or not. And so she waters her garden every day or two, right? And that's what she wants to do. And I benefited. She brings over produce for me sometimes, like, hey, I've got so much here, would you take this? Thank you. But yeah, for me right now in this season of my life, I didn't want to garden, right? I didn't want to place my time and attention there. Come spring, I don't know, right? This spring I might feel like, no, I need to plant a few vegetables. I need to tend for them and have a little garden space this next year. I'll know when I know, right? When I get to springtime and it's time to plant, I'll see what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And it's that way, of not trying to control and just allowing. It is what it is. There's no right, there's no wrong. It just is. Then we get to choose what we're going to do. Right. So again, when those little plants came up, it was like, and I mean, like literally they shot up like within a day or two. I was like, poof, looked like kind of full grown plant. I don't know what they were. They kind of looked like peppers from a leaf perspective, but they weren't, because there was no pepper blossoms or other stuff that went on. And so they must be some kind of a flower that I don't know what they are. But that came along, and I consciously chose that was not what I wanted to do. So I chose not to spend my attention, not to spend my awareness, not to spend water on that. And that's okay, because that's what I chose. So because I chose that, I know I'm not getting a harvest of that, which is fine. Because I want my attention, I want my awareness, I want my water, I want my nutrients to go other places right now, so I can have other kinds of harvests in my life.
Yeah, we were the same way. I mean, we've been now in the house just a little over a year, and the same thing. Like when we moved in, basically the summer of last year, and part of it was just seeing like what's here, like what's growing, what is everything going to look like. And there's things that, I mean, a lot of it we're just like, that's great. If it comes up, it comes up, but we're not spending the time, like you said, to water it and spend and tend it and things like that. My mother-in-law gave us some plants though this spring, that we are tending and watering and stuff, because that's where our, we wanted to get the harvest from those specific things. There was some mint that she gave us and some tomatoes and some things. And we've got a couple of roses out there that we purchased. And so those are where we do want to spend our attention and our time and our efforts. But the rest of the stuff is nice when it comes up. But like you said, that's not, at this time, not a priority, not where we want to spend that time attention.
Yeah, our priorities change over time. So
yeah,
seasons of life or seasons of love, right?
Which kind of feels like it should be some sort of like reality TV show or something, like seasons of love.
Or maybe a soap opera, so we can tie in Days of Our Lives again, right?
These are the seasons of our love.
Of our lives. Of our lives. No, but I think, again, it's just a good reminder, I think, for all of us. I mean, I've been being reminded of this too. And like I said, we were talking about plants, but we're not talking about plants, right? Because there's different seasons of life. There's different seasons of love. There's different seasons of our evolvement, of our spirit, of whatever you want to throw in there. They're all important phases, right? It's all an opportunity for us to surrender, but also an opportunity for all of us to do the work necessary, right, for things to happen. And the right kind of things, right? And so again, we'll take this seed example again. When I take that seed and I plant it in the ground, there's a few things I need to do. I need to make sure it's covered appropriately, that it has the right amount of sunshine coming into it based on what kind of plant it is, right? I mean, some plants like more sun. Some plants, if you put them in the sun, will die, right? So you got to kind of know the right environment to put it in, how deep to put it in, how hard to pack the soil, how much water to give it, what kind of nutrients you would give it, right? How often you should water it. But then all you have to do is those little things, and then show up each day and just water it a little bit, right? Everything in creation is already in that seed. The seed already knows exactly what to do if you will give it the right environment, and you will tend for it in the way that you need to. I don't have to sit there and imagine and try to manifest the seed sprouting. The seed already knows what it's doing. That's not my job. I don't have to place any attention or awareness on knowing how it happens or forcing it to happen by my, conscious attention and manifesting on it. It already knows. I just have to do my little part. It's like when we talked before about your daughter and the healing, let it stop picking at it so it can heal, right? All we have to do sometimes is those little things. Your body already knows what to do. The seed already knows what to do. Your light being or spirit or soul already knows what to do. All you have to do is give it the environment that it needs, and it will do the rest. So there you have it.
Look, just give me some loving.
Just give me some loving. Give me some loving. Oh, there we go again, right? We got another song reference in there.
That's right.
Good loving.
Right. If you've listened this far, go ahead and let us know how many references we put in here, because I've lost track. And so it'll be interesting to see how many songs, how many shows, or whatever references that we've got in this one, and maybe next time we'll try to beat it.
There we go.
I know.
There we go.
Or we'll completely get them out. I mean, that really depends on what you guys want, I guess. But so
perfect. Well, have a great week, everybody, and think through the seasons. Have gratitude for where you're at. Do the little things that you can do. Don't try to skip the steps. It doesn't work, right? And Brad, thank you for bringing this up, because like I said, this was something I needed to hear, something that I've been living, and I'm sure it's something everybody else needs to hear as well. So
that's what we're here for. So.
All right, everybody, have a great week, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.